instead of worrying about what's happening 6,000 fucking miles away, or instead of worrying about what a black billionaire is doing and talking about, instead of being offended for a community that you know nothing about, instead of defending a country that you can't point on a fucking map, what can you do for yourself to make sure that change is happening for your world around you?
Amir, we're finally giving the people what they want.
They've been asking for it for so long, Connor. And we're finally here. We just said, you know what? F it, we're going to do it.
I know, when we scheduled it within like 24 hours, we just turned it around.
Done. Yesterday, you're like, let's do it. I'm like, all right, bet. I'm ready. 3 o'clock, let's go.
I think we got to get one thing out of the way, which people really are always asking me about. How into me is Brett Cooper? That's the real question that people want to know.
What do you mean? What's into me? Like into you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, not a lot. Not at all.
She's always liking my old photos, responding to my stories with like kissy emojis. It's getting a little uncomfortable, honestly.
She's my favorite. It's just so funny whenever like she posts a picture of us, whether it's on her story, on her feed, how many people are like, oh, he's public enemy number 1, or who's this guy? And it's like, I'm gay. I do not want any of that. I'll pass. But no, that's the bestie. Love her.
Yeah, she seems like I like root for her. For as far as the people at the Daily Wire, like I feel bad. She did follow me for a little while, and she doesn't really blow my DMs up. That was obviously a joke. But like she did this something for the Daily Wire that I critiqued on the show, and I kind of felt bad because I'm like, I really like this person, but the takes were cringe. You know what I mean? Like, they were cringe. It was about the big quit and that stuff. And I'm like, it was very like Daily Wire-y. And I'm like, this has very little to do with like Brett on her own. But I do love it. Y'all's friendship is like so fun to watch. It makes me like really excited to come to Nashville.
Yeah. People love it. We're going to hope to make more videos soon. So it'll be fun.
I hope so. But really what got us into all this is Kanye. And we were just talking before we started recording that Kanye is kind of a symptom of like there's a lot more going on outside of Kanye that like has manifested in his, and I think it's safe to say like I've been around people who have like a little bit of a mental break. Like I feel like he's in something like that, but he's also kind of a genius. So you get these like crazy, you see that with like Stanley Kubrick and these different people, like they're on a different wavelength. Like there's that line between genius and crazy is real
It
thin.
takes a lot of time to actually dissect what they mean and what they say, because they're just throwing things at that high level. It's like, you need to say, if he makes a 3-hour-long podcast interview, you're spending another 3 hours dissecting it just because it's that sparsed out. Yeah,
and he's got a lot. You can tell he's angry. And what my kind of take on it was, I think Lex Friedman did the best job. I just listened to the Drinking Champs, like that one. I listened to that while I was duck hunting. So I like actually ended up waking up at 1 a.m. and just like went, because I was going to wake up at 2, but I woke up at 1. So I was just like driving for like 4 or 5 hours that day around, and I was just listening to that the whole day. So I was like immersed in it and kind of halfway like awake and asleep. And so I was listening to this and I'm like, man, this guy is like, he's on one, but you could tell there was like something to it. And I think like blaming it all on the Jews is a bit much, right? Like it's like,
I think there's a different way to go about it.
There's a way different way to go about it. And what I was trying to say whenever I was even breaking it down for my show was, I want to see where he's coming from here. Like, what is this coming from here? Even that, like even saying like my biggest thing was that I heard him saying really resonate with me. And you don't see these in the clips, was he really wanted the black community to operate more like the Jewish community does.
Yeah. He was jealous, jealous of the Jewish community. Yeah.
And it's not a secret that like, if we look at the percentage of black folks that there are in the United States and the percentage of Jewish folks that there are in the United States, and like how many, if you look at the CEOs of company, the founders of companies, you go down that rabbit hole, and like, there's a lot more Jewish folks that are way better off and more powerful than there are black folks. That's just objectively
Tenfold.
True.
That's a fact.
And when you look at the entertainment industry, it's like, and I said this about, I was talking to my wife about this. It's like any singular ideology that is, the head of every major media company, every major music label. Like if it doesn't matter if it's Christians, black people, white people, like if it's homogeneous in some way, like I have a problem with that in general, right? It's like when it comes to Israel and stuff like that, I get called anti-Semitic because like I just principally have an issue with ethno-states. Like that's just, to me, is like, it doesn't matter if it's Iran, like all of that, all Israel, like to me, it's all the same. It's like ethno-states in general I'm a secular government principled actor. Right? I don't like Christian nationalism either. Like it's equal opportunity. I just happen to live in a state or a country where, we have really Christianity as the dominant force. And so I criticize that more than otherwise. But I try to like zoom out of this and look into it. I'm curious, like, what have you seen as a black man, especially, and you've been around? I mean, you were at the premiere of Candace Owens' BLM video. You know, you were there. You've been around more of this, and I'm curious what your take is on all of it.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that the way it's going down and how he said certain things, I feel like it could have been done a different way. But overall, it was twofold, because on one end, you have the black community that low-key don't even care about what he said about the Jews. Like they just don't care. They're more pissed about his stance on George Floyd and being, you know, with Candace Owens and all that. And then you have the Jewish community that's mad about, obviously, the DEF CON and all that stuff. So it's a double whammy, and everybody thinks they're together. They're together in that they want to cancel Kanye, but not together on the same principle. And Kanye's been talking about this a lot in his recent interviews, is that everyone's too focused on Kanye and not why Kanye was mad or why Kanye got to that point. And I think that's the point that's getting kind of diluted, and it's kind of unfortunate to see, especially being that he even called it out, you know, like some people are saying, oh, he wanted to get out his contracts. Sure. But the fact that he knew what to do to get out the contracts is a problem to me in the first place. Because it's like, why is it that he says certain things about the Jewish community, which a lot of it is just out of jealousy, like we just talked about, and he gets canceled like this, like to the not even Alex Jones level, yet he can talk all this stuff about the black community and it's fine, or a lot of people talking about like straight white male or talk about white men in this nation. Every race gets crapped on except for really one. And it's bothering me to see this unfold the way it is. Even if it's wanted or not, it's still unfortunate, because I see a black man who was the richest black man in this country telling people what's happening in the fashion industry, which he's dominating, in the music industry, which he's dominating, and everyone's ignoring him.
Yeah.
And so you would think that you would listen to someone of that caliber, and a lot of people just aren't.
That's what I said on the show, is that, I mean, I've been around reasonably famous people, as you have, and that's not a flex by any stretch of the imagination, but you see, especially when you're like partying and doing drugs with relatively famous people, like how you start to see a little bit of what's going on, right? You see a little bit of like the dark underbelly of shit, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, with my limited experience as a nobody, right?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that Kanye has seen more dark, nasty shit. And when I say dark, nasty shit, I don't mean like crack alleys and shit like that. Nothing like that. I'm not talking about like the stuff you see on the streets. Like if you go to downtown Denver or whatever city,
right,
and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the dark underbelly of like the powerful, rich folks in the world. He's seen more of that shit than I have. And I understand that, you know, and he is a little out there, and he is bipolar, right? Like I think that's pretty well understood. And he's going to go off the rails. But to me, it's very similar to Alex Jones, where I'm like, this guy has seen some things that I haven't seen. I have to sift through what he's saying to try to get to what I'm trying to get to out of it. I've got to like sift. It's like I have to fine tooth comb it like I'm painting for gold, right? Like just trying to get.
You have to work to listen to these people.
It's hard, but I just understand that like this guy's seen things I haven't seen. So there's something in here for me to listen to, whether I know what it is yet or not. And I try and look at it while being relatively objective. And then I zoom out and I'm like, okay, really? I mean, what he's saying, and I'm not trying to be anti-Semitic here. I've even said this, and this is my kind of disclaimer. I think the Jewish faith is actually really interesting. Yeah. I find it kind of intriguing, and I've getting into as being relatively agnostic and objective about these things. Like which ones are like, I think Christianity is kind of boring, to be honest with you. Right. I think Norse mythology is really rad. I think Judaism is kind of interesting. It's like, there's something in there, you know? I find Buddhism and Taoism really interesting to me. That's just my own, subjective view at the thing. But when you think about it, it's like we can have a conversation like Ben Shapiro can jump on the Daily Wire and talk about black on black crime, right? You can talk about black on black crime. You can talk about Mexicans bringing fentanyl over the border, right? Mm-hmm. You can have that conversation, right? You can talk about toxic white cis men or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. All culturally okay. you can't talk about Jews ever. You can't criticize Jews, right? Which I understand this, like the Jewish folks, and I get that there's like a lot of trauma there. There's also a lot of trauma in the Native American community, in the Black community, in the poor white community.
Trauma everywhere.
Everywhere, right? So it's like, I understand that your people went through something really hard in the 1940s. And it's disgusting and it's tragic, and nobody defends that. If you're a Holocaust denier, we're having a different conversation. But like in my lifetime, I've never seen that from the Jewish community. I've seen the Jewish community be incredibly exclusive of everyone else and very successful. Like, and you think about this, like there's that kind of cliche or that stereotype of like the Jewish mother that's like, you need to find a good Jewish boy or girl, you know, like that they want to keep, like there's something about that, which I think is kind of beautiful, right? It's like the Jewish people, because of millennia really of like oppression in some sort of way, have become very tight knit and kind of look out for their own. That's fine. If my mom said, I want you to find a nice white girl, like I would think that was really weird. You know what I mean? As a race, and you're in a mixed race relationship. It's like, I don't think about those kind of things, but Jewish people think about those things, I would say, more than most. Maybe Catholics would be up there as well, but that's a belief system, not a race.
Anti-Semitic to point that out.
I know it's fine. It's fine. Like and that's cool. I think but then I look at Kanye and I'm like, it seems like he kind of wants more of that in the Black community. And I think he's projecting a lot of that onto just like the Jewish people.
He wants that, and he's projecting it on the Jewish people just because primarily all the people who he's dealt with in this sphere are all Jewish.
Yes.
And so he's lumping them together the same way Ben Shapiro lumps people together. And just because we hear terms like the Black community or the Mexicans or the Asian community doesn't mean that everyone thinks it's a broad stroke of everyone.
Yeah.
Like when Kanye said, oh, the Jewish controlled media, I'm not looking at my friend who's Jewish and saying, oh, you're controlling the media. Like I understood what he meant. Like I think most people understood what he meant by that. And you're right. I think he is just jealous of the way that their communities ran, and he wants that for Black people. And he sees that people capitalize off of keeping Black people down. Kanye says they're all Jewish. I haven't looked into that for myself. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. Maybe it's just a majority of them Jewish. I don't know. But there is a kind of systemic, should you say, effort, I feel, to strategically keep the Black race self-destructing through the means of abortion and through the means of pushing the music and this narrative and this degeneracy that we always see. Like Candace Owens always talks about it. We don't see successful Black families anymore like we do back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. All you see is the world star, like the Real Housewives fighting each other. You see the rappers shooting and killing each other, and it's all promoted. It's all rewarded in this community. And you have record label executives picking and choosing who to sign. It's like, here's a conscious rapper who raps about positivity and spits bars, or here's someone who's rapping about shooting and killing someone. Let's prop this guy up and give him a check. It's like, to a certain point, these people do need to be brought down. And
I think there can be a little bit of both. And this is something like, coming as a white kid from rural Texas, like I used to love Tupac. I still love Tupac, right? But like back in the day, I had like a 15-inch subwoofer in my truck, and I'd like listen to Tupac. And like,
bless.
If you listen to Tupac, like it was, I would say, like what they would call like them thugs back in the day. You know, it's like, I'm not against rap, but I am against them thugs.
Right.
The Bone Thugs Harmony had that as an intro, one of their songs. But it's like, if you look at hit, like Tupac's lyrics versus what you see today, right? It's like a lot of his stuff, like he talks, right, talking about how we treat each other poorly. Like we know, like the same thing Kanye's saying, like our people are sick. Mm-hmm. You know, the way we treat women is fucked. Like, hey, like talking to his mom about how his mom like did so much for him and how sorry he is for putting her through all that bullshit as he grows into a man. And he's like glad that he's still alive and made it through the shit that he went through, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like there's a way to do it, but now it's like it was balanced, right? In the same way that like country music has its equivalent of like, you know, drugs and bitches, right? Like it's like beer and trucks and tight jeans. It's the same shit, right? But at the same time, it's balanced out with like, you know, love and family, and it balances it out. And I think that's you're absolutely right with like it within like a hip hop community, like Black culture, one type gets elevated more than the other. And there's not that like that balance there where it's like, yeah, when you're a young man, you're gonna be wild and doing silly shit. Like that's part of growing up. But there needs to be a both of like, oh man, like realizing your bullshit, taking ownership of yourself, realizing and that's part of like just growing up. And I think that there's a lot of one and not the other in those communities. And that's
for sure.
primarily pointed at a certain people. And then it's rough, man. I totally see that. I see it. And I think it's a valid point. And there's not, and this is one thing that trips me out. I wanted to kind of get your take on this is you have people like Candace Owens, which I know that it's attention seeking when she says this, but like systemic racism doesn't exist. She'll say that, right? Mm-hmm. But then you have Kanye talking about the reality of the CIA leaking cocaine into black communities, locking up black leadership, and calling them gang leaders, even though it wasn't the case. You've got credible threats of the FBI killing Martin Luther King, one of the greatest black leaders that's ever lived.
Right.
And how can you have those same understandings and be like, well, so how is that anything but systemic racism? Right.
Right. I guess honestly, this may just be a case of friends just disagreeing. I mean, you and I don't agree on everything. So I think it's simply just a case of Candace not really seeing Kanye's point on that.
Yeah.
But if she does, then I hope that she corrects it or stands against it or calls it out, because I think it's twofold. I think the systemic racism that the left typically talks about, I think that's different than the systemic racism that we're talking about and that Kanye talks about, because I feel like a lot of leftists says, oh, white people above you keeping you down, or, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. And that's just not the case for me.
Yeah, well, and it's scapegoating too. It's like the white folks do this, and it's like, hey man, Richard Nixon did this shit. Like I had nothing to do with that.
Right, exactly.
I mean? Like weed's illegal because of Nixon and that his racism. I think it's absurd. And my dad was in jail for this shit too. Like I don't like it at all.
Right. Whereas it's the systemic that we're talking about with like the rap industry or the cocaine, whatever that may be. People really don't call it systemic racism, and they probably should be called that. Because it's keeping it down. But yeah, I think it may just be a case of people disagreeing with each other. But that whole topic reminds me of a conversation I had with my spouse, and we were talking, who is white, and we were talking about his race in general. And he was saying, what's the main difference between white and black people to you? And I said, freedom. I think white people are just free to do whatever the hell that they want to do. If you have a white person that wants to go hiking, they go hike. You have a white person that wants to stay home and cook, they cook, ride bikes, whatever it may be. Rap about country, rap about rap, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're free to do whatever. But black people are in this tiny ass box. And if you stray away for a second, you get your black cards taken away. Why are you acting white? Why you're talking white? Why are you eating white people food? It's like this tiny little box. And it's also keeping the black people down, because you also really have a majority of black people rapping and gang rap, because if they dare try anything else, they're going through a lot of shit to get there. Black country artists, they go through a lot of shit. Black pop artists, they go through a lot of shit. Why are you singing like a white girl? Like, we're just not allowed to do anything. And we're stuck in this, like Kanye says, a slave-like mentality where we have to abide by these rules that are ultimately self-destructing. And if we stray away from that, you get called out. And it's frustrating to see that unfold still to this day in 2022. And I just wish that black people were more free to do what they want to do and realize that they don't have to shit on each other nonstop to get to that point.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I never thought about it from that perspective, because I'm not black, so I'm not really in that community to deal with that. But we have a lot more flexibility. Yeah. And like, you can go all over the place.
You're not going to get shit on. You'll get bullied, but like,
you can get shit on, but it's not the same. It's not the same. It's different.
Right.
It's not like you're betraying your people. Like, I mean, that's what it's like. It's different. It's like, oh, you may be a pussy or something like that, but it's like, or, whatever. Like,
no one say, oh, Connor, you're not white anymore. This is a disgrace.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Like, and it's real.
Call me
like,
Uncle Tom or whatever that shit is.
Right.
Like, that's, yeah. I feel that. And I feel like that's one thing with, again, like in the last few years, I've seen this when it comes to race, is like, there's not really, it's hard for a white person to even have any kind of like criticism or even observation. I wouldn't say criticism, just observations about the black community at all. It's like, well, no, it's like you're oppressive by just mentioning that. And it's like homophobia within the black community is like I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem. Like, white folks don't give a fuck who's gay, really, unless it's like you're like some backcountry ass, like,
if you're in the boonies.
Those people aren't like around people. It's like whatever. It's like if you're not around gay people and you're homophobic, like whatever, dude. Like that's
it's
cool.
like the meme I posted the other day. Someone asked me if me and Brett Cooper were dating, and I posted the meme of the gay guy, whatever, the guy in church. I ain't gay no more. I like women. And you see the whole congregation crying. They're praising Jesus. He's like, I'm not gay anymore. And everyone's applauding. And I'm like, it's like funny, but like low key fucked up.
Yeah.
like, what is happening here? Why is the woman crying?
Oh, this gets so hyped on it. But
it's
yeah,
so absurd. Because Kanye spoke on that. Kanye was like, the most censored person right now is the white man. A white man talks about a woman, he's sexist. Talks about gay people, he's homophobic. Talks about black people, he's racist. It just doesn't end.
Yeah, doesn't end at all. Where it's, and that's what we. That's actually, I have a friend. It's my other gay black friend. There's two of you guys out there in the world.
We're gonna fight.
I know he's a Chicago lib too. We're on different ends of the spectrum.
I'm from Chicago. We can run up.
But he was like, well, what if white people were as scared talk about black folks on the media as they are to talk about Jewish folks on the media? And I was like, I don't really think you should be scared to talk about anybody. It's like, but if you're being, it depends. If you're being absurd, like there's some absurd shit, like there's some absurd shit on MSNBC, but it's a different flavor of absurd than like on Fox News, like Laura Ingraham, right? Being like, all these school shooters are users, they smoke weed. And I'm like, lady, I don't know what year you think this is, but you're so like,
bad.
It's just, and she keeps going. She's on it. She's done it. She did that several nights in a row. And like, acts as if that's thing. She's like hard drugs, like LSD. And I was like, LSD is not a hard drug. I was on LSD yesterday. like I microdose LSD like 2 times a week at least. It makes me, I get the most done. It's great. And that's like, I'm way safer than Adderall, like, which is she's totally fine with, right? So I was even getting at there, but it's like but it's like saying that stuff out, right? Like getting it out there. If you're really racist, you're really anti-Semitic, like I don't think there's, and this is such a controversial opinion now, but like let the people talk. Like, let them talk and have a conversation with them. That's what I loved about Lex Friedman as a Jewish man coming in. And he also told Kanye to fuck off one time because Kanye kind of got a little fired up and he was like, dude, fuck you. Like, why do you not trust me? Like, I'm giving you a platform here to have this conversation and trying to have a good faith. But Kanye's been kind of fucked over,
Yeah.
But it's hard. He said this on the Drinking Champs. It's like, he's not going to get the sympathy vote. You know what I'm saying? He's a billionaire or was. Mm-hmm. And he's done really well for himself. It's just, it's tricky as fuck. And there's so much going on. And I'm trying to just get in there and understand like what can even be done going forward to keep this from happening again. Like, does somebody need to openly say like, hey, somebody from that community, like we were keeping people out of this, right? Because it's like that money. He said this on the Drinking Champs. It's the one thing that really stuck with me was like, you've got these guys that'll take the best and the brightest from the black community, milk them for all they're worth, and then Stevie Wonder's son's got to get a job. And I was like, holy shit, I never thought about that, right? Whereas like Elvis's family is still fucking living on Elvis money. But Stevie Wonder's, you know what I mean? It's like, is one better than the other? Like they both made an equal number of incredible hits that are still going.
Kanye talks about a little bit of this in the Lex interview about how, long story short, like it was him, Virgil, and some other guy, and they were trying to come together to build this fashion empire, but then they got poached. And they got hired to work at all these other firms. And it goes back to what Kanye was talking about, how he can't even build a true empire because everyone just keeps getting milked out.
He was even saying that like he only has two black people that worked at his shop out of like 300.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he even said that. He goes, okay, so I've said all this stuff. Now, if I want to make an all black company, that seems, because I've gone so wild and said this crazy shit, like that seems normal. That seems reasonable. He's like, I went so far, which I used to do that with my clients back in the day because I would do crazy shit, like psychedelic wise. Like, yeah, maybe don't do that, but like, let's tone it back a little bit. And that seems more reasonable. Whenever you've gone to a 10, like a 3 seems reasonable. When if you only lived at 1, a 3 seems extreme. And I think it's like, yeah, I mean, I can totally see, I would love to see what could happen with an all black fashion company or an all black record label.
Like what would happen?
But would they get shut out of the industry by a group of people who have have the industry by the balls right now?
It's like at some point,
it's like, can you even be criticized? Like, well, you should criticize individuals, right? Like I said that a bunch. I'm like, okay, but if he criticized individuals and all those individuals happen to be Jewish, he's still going to be called an anti-Semitic.
Because he's going to be targeting only Jewish people.
You see what I'm saying? Even though he may just be that's only people that have worked with him. And it's like, I have friends that are Jewish people in the entertainment industry or the PR, doing that kind of thing. And it's like, I reached out to one. I was like, what do you think about this? Dude, he goes, I don't think he has bad intent. It's kind of what he was saying. He's not trying to be hurtful here.
Mm. This is
That's
a
all I
Jewish
got.
friend saying that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, all my Jewish friends, they're like, F this dude.
I mean, I got into it on Twitter with some folks, but yeah.
To the 10th degree. It's just like, how far is this going to go and how long is this going to last? Because we all see it. We all see what happens when you talk about a certain group. And it's like, I think going forward from this, what can happen is one, Kanye is free from all his contracts and he still has a lot of support from the fan base. So he finally has the leverage to, and even way more money than before, to build his own things and sell it that way and make a bigger profit, I guess. But another topic that can be changed is the whole music industry and this whole industry as a whole. Like, that can be a topic now. We can move on from what he said and focus on why he said it and see what is he talking about. Because now I even have my mom texting me a bunch of articles and stuff like, what is this or what's this? She's asking me a lot of questions. He's opened it up. I feel like a lot of Jewish people say he's opened the floor up for a lot of anti-Semitism and people not liking Jews. I feel like he's opened the door up for people to ask questions. And asking questions does not mean I hate a Jewish person. Asking questions is mean I'm asking a question.
Well, here's the thing, and this is going to be my one line from here is going to get pulled out, and it's going to be called. I'm going to call all kinds of things, but I believe this: criticism isn't racism, and criticism is not anti-Semitism.
That shouldn't be controversial.
That's not controversial. It doesn't have anything to do with your religion. If somebody tried to herd you guys up or some shit like they did in Nazi Germany, I'd be fighting it on your side. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
yes.
It's like I take up arms for you. You know what I'm saying? In that whole situation, I'm not gonna get like, this isn't, we don't live in that. I think we need to also understand it's not the 1930s. I get that there's, again, trauma there, but lots of communities have trauma, and that isn't an excuse to like, and it's so weird when you get this place where it's like, no one can say anything, right? Everybody's scared to say something.
Anomaly said, it's like throwing water on a witch. It's just, it's just like, no matter what happens.
Well, I keep coming back to Ben Shapiro, but he's such a good, like Ben has some qualities that I really like. Like, he's incredibly objective to the point of like his legal analysis is really good, but anything that has to do with like real people living normal lives, like he just is so out of touch with that because that's not how he lives his life. He's not familiar with like humaning, like being a person. In my opinion, like you know what I mean? It's like, that's not really his strong suit, is like humaning, being a person. So,
that's fair.
But it's like whenever he talks about like constitutional law, I always want to listen because I'm like, he's so objective that it's like, he very is like not emotional. But when it comes to this, like if you criticize Israel in any way, like he goes off and it's like, he's like, okay, so if you were to say like something was oppressive or racist or whatever, he'd be like, no. Like he'd Ben Shapiro himself around and be like, that's a problem. Good. And it's like, and he's like, he turned into like a little like, well, facts don't care about your feelings. No, that's what he would do. But then it's like, well, Israel maybe shouldn't kill so many civilians. And he's like, anti-Semitism everywhere. Oh my God, it's anti-Semites. Rashida Tlaib's an anti-Semite. AOC is an anti-Semite. It's like, whoa, how do you not see? How is it not right in your face how hypocritical that is? Like, how is that so hard for you to wrap your mind around?
He doesn't see it. And I have some Jewish friends that are like, oh, we need to cancel Kanye. We need to do this and do that. Like, they're not they're not upset at the fact of him being so deplatformed. I mean, weren't you just talking about free speech? Weren't you just talking about promoting free speech and how this is so important and we shouldn't be canceling people? But now all of a sudden, because you got criticized, not you, but like your community, you have a problem with it now. And now you're in favor of shutting them down. It's hypocritical. But a lot of Jewish people see what Kanye is saying as equal to Hitler. And I don't know how, but they do.
Yeah, and that's people throw that Hitler around so much.
I'm over it.
Well, and that's the thing. It doesn't mean anything. It's just like when racism got overused so much, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
It does. What does it mean to be racist in 2022? Anti-Semitic, homophobic. What does it mean? Because I've been called all of it.
You've been exactly as a gay black man. You've been called what? Racist, anti-Semitic,
racist, and homophobic, all of it. I literally miss him. Like one of my good best friends that I had growing up cut me off because I'm racist and homophobic, and he's a white gay man. He's like, Amir, you're just too racist and homophobic for me. Like, I cannot. And I'm like, bro, what? What are you talking about?
It's so
It's like
crazy.
the words don't mean anything anymore. And it's like, oh, Kanye's speaking like Hitler. I don't think there's a video of Hitler saying he's jealous of Jews. I don't think there's a video of Hitler praising the Jewish community. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't add up, but it's like, it's a non-starter, right? It's like anti-Semitic non-starter, which only at this point now, because of the way, if this would have happened 3 years ago, I might be in a different camp here, right? Mm-hmm.
But it's like, because of the way the last 3 years have been, where it's like, if this thing is, it's like, there's just like, it's this and you shouldn't see it because it's anti-Semitic or it's racist or it's homophobic or it's problematic or whatever it says. It just makes me want, I'm just going to watch it even harder now. I'm just going to watch it more thoroughly.
It's making people hateful.
And then all it does, what's the end result of all this with Kanye? Kanye is whatever, and people are more divided. So now within the division, there's more division, right? Because I think this is actually dividing the conservative side of things, because everything is political now. Like the right side is more split on Kanye than the left is. The left is like, they're homogeneous in this kind of thing.
Yeah, they're like, F it.
No one's asking hard questions, right? Mm-hmm. Even like people that I appreciate are like, this is beyond the pale, which it kind of is. But at the same time, like there's something, let's try to be, steel man it if you can. And I'll steel man anything. Like that's one thing that people don't understand. Like I'll steel man anything. Like it just for as a thought experiment, because to me, that's what critical thinking is. Can you go and make a case for all kinds of crazy shit?
You have to be a critical thinker, and you have to ask questions, and you have to dig deep. Like you have to dig deep and truly fight to understand something. And you can't do that if you're censoring someone. You can't do that if someone's completely blocked out. And you have, I feel like there may be more, but right now I'm stick with two groups of people. You have a Kanye or an Alex Jones who gets deplatformed. You have the people that are like, oh, I don't need to look at anything. He's right. I'm just fighting for Kanye. You know, the people who are really analyzing the situation or analyzing the Alex Jones situation. Why did they get canceled? What did they say? Who did he mean by this? Or what do you mean by saying this? You have the people who are going to research it and dig deep. Any other people that are going to blindly follow them and then go even further down the rabbit hole and divided and not understand what's actually going on. And you're only creating more division by deplatforming and censoring. That's it. Like that's truly it.
It's all it is, and it's media manipulation. It's a control tactic. It really is, and it's like people will talk about Alex Jones, right? And what Alex Jones did with the school shooting was just, it was gross. It was gross. It was wrong, and I think that he probably owes those families some money because they were harassed by his audience.
See, I don't know about the money part.
Is it $1 billion? It's more. I think there's something within reason. Like if you if you harass somebody at work, like this happened a lot, like you sexually assault a woman at work, like you're paid, like that person's getting, you know what I mean? And it's like his audience. Fair. It was his audience that did it, not really him. But I know, to what extent did it like rely on you? Because you can have someone. And these people had to move. There's actual financial damages. Like they had to move from their houses because they were being harassed after their kids were murdered. Like there's a lot there where I'm like, and I think Alex Jones is probably worth $30 million, $40 million somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it's like at the same time, when I look at it and you look at the thing, it's like, well, okay, so it's $1 billion now. They're trying to go to like 2.7 trillion, which doesn't make any sense. It's like comic book numbers, right? And it's like, well, what about Jeffrey Epstein's victims? Are they splitting up his estate? Is the sale of his island going to be split up amongst his victims? Because actually, if I had to choose, I'd rather what he did versus what Jeffrey Epstein did. Like Jeffrey Epstein in person trafficked and raped women, right? And they were then manipulated by the system. And why is no one being questioned on the flight log? Why is no one testifying? Yeah, why is there none of that, right? But we'll all coalesce around Alex Jones, who again, it's even debatable whether he's culpable or not, which I think he made a huge mistake. I don't think he also should have been deplatformed. I think censoring him was like taking him off everything was a problem. Oh. I knew it was a slippery slope, but I knew there was nothing to be done about it. I was like, it's gone. Huge problem. And I'm like, what did that case open the doors to? To what extent? Because like the George Floyd family wants to sue Kanye for saying that he died of fentanyl. And it's like. Well, that's the thing is like it's not illegal to say that. It's also not illegal to be a Holocaust denier. It's not illegal to say all kinds of shit. Like when Candace Owens says that, well, the Native Americans actually fought each other more than, I was like, Candace, please. Like, look at the real stories. Somehow, when all their infighting amongst Native American groups, they didn't eradicate themselves and put themselves on reservations. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's validity. I've also, like, if you look at the story
There's
of Crazy
nuance to
Horse,
everything.
there were westward expansionist soldiers who killed small girls, scalped their pubic area, and wore it like a trophy, like their pubes, as a fucking young girls. And the men came back and found that. So it's like, I was actually on my way to a job interview, listening to that story on a history podcast, Daniele Bellelli's History on Fire, sobbing. I had to, like, get my shit together to go into a job interview like 6 or 7 years ago. You know, it's like, so it's like, you look at this and it's like, we can look at this from all different directions. Maybe they didn't intentionally give them smallpox blankets, but it's like, when imperialism happened, like, a lot of people fucking died, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
You know, and we can have a complex decision about a conversation about that. But it's like, it's not illegal for her to have that opinion. It's not illegal for any of this shit to happen. I think if George Floyd would have died of fentanyl overdose in the paddy wagon on the way to the jail, he would have just been another prisoner that died in the paddy wagon of fentanyl on the way to jail, and none of this shit would have happened. It seems to me that, okay, so it's like, if you were high on fentanyl and I stabbed you a bunch of times, it's like, did you die of fentanyl or did you die of me stabbing you? It's like, well, we don't know now, so we're going to go with the thing that probably killed you, that looks like it killed you. I don't know, because now it's like, you maybe would have died 5 minutes later, but I still killed you.
Because I've said this before, I'm of the likes where it's like a combination of both. Like,
It probably was.
Had he would have died alone in the back of the paddy wagon, sure. But I do think by him saying, I can't breathe, for so many times before anybody was even touching him,
Yeah.
that shows me that he was already having a panic attack. I've taken Adderall in the past. I can't even have a cup of coffee on Adderall, because then I'm like, whoo.
Well, and with fentanyl can slow your heart rate and breathing rate down, where he probably was. It was like he was panicking, but it was slowing his heart rate down, on top of the fact that then you restrict breathing, and then you're already not getting enough oxygen, and that's how you overdose on opioids.
So it's like
a
mix of everything. Because just because someone, and I saw this on the Flagrant podcast, and it was a good point. It's like, he had a lethal dose of fentanyl in him. Well, it's like, what is a lethal dose? Because
how long have you been doing it? How much you've been doing it? He's like 275 pounds too, so he's a big boy.
What is a lethal dose with somebody? Because I know certain drugs will affect me a certain way where a friend doesn't. I know, like, I remember in high school, I took a Xanax and I was out.
Half a Xanax, and I did it one time. It was the worst thing ever.
Oh, worse. And then I had a friend who took 3 bars and it was fine.
And that's the thing with fentanyl, OxyContin, hydrocodone, you build up a tolerance, right? Like, I found out, my grandfather told me that my grandmother was addicted to hydrocodone for over 20 years, every day, right? But for her, it was an up. This thing, it affects people different. For her, it was an upper. So she had pain relief and increased energy levels. And she was also in a lot of pain. She was a big woman, and her knees had just like were trashed, right? And she had a lot of trauma in her life too, like a really rough upbringing. So you get like, but it's like, my mom was an addict. My dad was an addict. And you saw that it was like typical addict behavior. My grandmother, who was addicted to pain pills, and they tried to cut her off at the doctor's office in my little hometown. And she went up there and raised hell, dude. Because this is when they started realizing that they were overprescribing these pills, and they were kind of having to be accountable for it. And she went up there and she's like, you were not. And I was like, she's fucking in her 70s now. Like, what are you going to do? Cut this old lady off? Like, she's not going to rehab. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, just keep
what's going to happen here?
You know, and it's crazy. But you think about that, like, there's a lot of people who that just affects differently. Where if I take a hydrocodone or something, I haven't in probably a decade, I'm like gone.
I'm out of it. Last time I took it was surgery. I got all 4 of my wisdom teeth taken out at the same time. And
yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah, I was out of it. But yeah, I think it's a combination for both regarding George Floyd. But even then, like, I just wish that this society would just move on from issues and wasn't so selectively outraged. And I think that's what, again, Kanye was talking about in terms of Uvalde, because he noticed, like, oh shit, like, everyone's hopping on this Uvalde case, but like, where is the flack for like the 400 kids that died in Chicago? Like he's looking at the attention of where media is going, but everyone's too focused on what exactly he's saying. And what he's saying does have weight. He is a big influential person. But at the end of the day, I hope what people take from this is that they're able to take away the bigger picture of what he was trying to say and take the time to dissect everything.
I think it'll be a minority of people that are willing to take that out. I'm curious your thoughts on this with the Uvalde thing, because that was such a big topic. And I remember talking I did a whole show just on that. And I was super emotional, you know, because I didn't think I did. I don't know if it was before or after that. I like pulled out every different type of firearm that I have, which is like most. And just like, hey, because people don't know, right? Like you may not know a lot about like what's the difference in an AR and a bolt action. Like people don't know. So I pulled them all out and just kind of like went through like basic gun. Basically, if I was doing like a gun safety course for kids, I did that on video, right? And I was looking at that and I was like, just kind of talking through the whole Uvalde thing is a part of this. And it was like this Chicago inner city violence is different than a single lone gunman going and shooting a bunch of kids in a classroom. And it's like, I think one of them was like a very much a mental health issue, kind of probably a gun issue as well, like accessibility to guns, that type of firearm, especially. If he went in there with like a pump action shotgun, like he would have definitely been able to kill some people, but the reload time is really long, so it's like, it was a very complex, way of looking at it, where I feel like objectively, if you look at just the numbers, right, like data, like what's happening in Chicago is worse. Right. But it's it's the root of that problem is a little bit different.
And even then, I think it matters. It depends on, it's so objective to what is worse, because to someone, they might see, okay, this person having a mental health issue and then going into school, killing elementary school children, that's awful. Whereas someone else on the flip side, it can say like, yeah, that situation's bad, but can we talk about elementary school children shooting each other?
Yes.
Like in Chicago, or like having, a 13-year-old, like my little cousin, he lives in Chicago. I think he's a sophomore now in high school, and he's already lost like 4 or 5 friends.
Shut the fuck up. Like dead?
Yeah.
Whoa, dude.
But like, because it happens every day, every weekend. And yes, I do see what you're saying with like, you're having more and more these very just weak men just going out and shooting on a rampage. But on the other side, you have just these deranged children just living in a war zone, essentially.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And if you, it's just a bummer. It's all just a bummer, just overall. Like, yeah, the data's worse. Both sides of the argument, they're just bad. But I just think where the attention's going, like it was interesting. Like the Memphis case, the
guy who shut the massage parlors.
No, the billionaire Harris who went missing. She was running. Okay. You remember that case? She was running, and then she got kidnapped. And she found out she was murdered. But like it was all over. Maybe it's Memphis, and I live in Nashville. It was all over the news about this white woman going missing. And I'm like, this is like all the movies of like, you have a white woman going missing, and it's like
girl type shit.
Shut down the country. But then you have like black children going missing and black women going missing.
Oh, dude, you should look at the kidnapping rates in Native American reservations.
Oh,
astonishing!
I bet it's high.
It's fucking
so
crazy
off the grid.
High. Exactly. No one gives a shit.
No one cares.
It's so nuts. They even covered it a little bit on that show Yellowstone. They talked about it a little bit. But yeah, it's like, it is funny when it's like, oh, this isn't supposed to happen here, and it's like, is it supposed to happen somewhere else?
Anywhere, right?
Like, and that's it. When you said that, like both sides that's offering like quote unquote solutions are trash, right? You can listen to like we're just gonna beat Ben Shapiro up today. Cenk Uygur's solution is garbage. Ben Shapiro's solution is garbage. It's like there's not, and it's like what I think you need: economic stability, economic upward mobility focused in the black communities. Like somehow, whether that's opportunity zones, I don't know, but it seems like opportunity zones just gentrify an area and push black folks out of there anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are you going to do about that? Like, it's like, what the fuck, and it's such a complex issue that people want to like, and that's the thing about our politics now that drives me absolutely up the wall is like, no one has the patience to hear out a complex solution that may take 20 or 30 years. They want like punchline, tagline,
they want it now.
And it's like, I need this. And it's like the same people with all these like climate activists. They don't even understand what the fuck they're talking about, like dumping milk out in grocery stores.
And to that point, how do we get to a point where the people who are calling for the more 20, 30-year solutions, how do we make them attractive? Like a Will Rouge. Like, how do we make him more attractive and appeasing?
Yeah, I mean, he needs to be, I think he would be great in politics. Better than me. He's a little bit more like he's a little bit easier, at least easier pill to swallow than I am.
Or John McWhorter. Like, there's a lot of like intellectual like people, but they get stuck in this bubble. And I guess maybe it's because of culture, maybe it's because they're not like too in tune. I guess, I don't know. But I wish there was a solution to that.
You need your attention. Your message needs attention. This is I get frustrated with this too because I always say like I'm out here trying to like I play devil's advocate a lot. Like I said, a steel man for different sides a lot. It's kind of something it's something I just always did and enjoy doing. Worst way in the world to grow an audience, like the worst. That sucks. I could go full socialist and have an audience tomorrow. I could go full MAGA and have an audience tomorrow. It's easy.
It's like you land up politically homeless.
Yeah, but I land here and it's like, it's so funny. Even like it took me 2.5 hours to fill out my ballot the other day, like 3 days ago. I got the mail-in ballot, which I love getting. I went through everything. I watched videos. I watched small business owners talk about the propositions that would affect their businesses. And I was like, just to get an idea, right? Which is why I like everybody getting a ballot. Because I can fill it in. I wish I had to show ID when I turned it in, but I want to fill it out at home.
Probably.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which, wait, isn't that just like a common sense fucking solution to a problem? Right? Like that right there. We're going to debate about this for 16 years. Give everybody a ballot in the mail and require an ID to drop it off. Holy shit, I just changed the fucking world.
It's too simple. It's too simple.
It's like, oh yeah, everybody getting a ballot. That's more democratic. A voter ID is racist? How? Well, maybe spend the next 4 years getting everybody an ID.
Is driving racist? Like, it brings out Jamal. For those who don't know, Jamal, my name's Amir, but Jamal's my middle name, and that's my angry black man side. When Jamal comes out, he just fucking rages. And shit like that brings Jamal out because, like, what the fuck? Why do we, in what world is getting an ID racist? And you're like, oh, well, black people don't have access. Get on the fucking bus. What do you mean we don't have access?
You got to have an ID, man.
To operate in society, you have to have an ID to do some shit. So it's like, wow, you would think in order to vote, we would require an ID. I want to require an ID. Why not? In order for me to drink a beer, I have to have an ID. So not in order to vote someone in office, I don't have to have an ID. Shit out of here. It drives me up a wall. And that drives me down to the whole like trans shit and the kids. And
well, that's the thing is like, yeah. And I wanted to get into this after the Kanye thing was like, when you look out right at the world, and it's easy to pick on the left. I know, but we'll start there.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like the low hanging fruit, right? It's like the trans kids and it's not like, what's driving you fucking nuts right now? Because your little infographics and your sliders, like people love that. And they're very simple. They love it. And they're well articulated. I know I'm not supposed to tell a black man that he articulates things well, but you articulate it. I appreciate that.
I write them for me. I write them for old Amir. I write them for the Amir who was like deep on the left. That's all I really do. But the things that are driving me crazy right now is one, the trans kids and the trans issue and the whole LGB being lumped in with the TQ plus. I'm not a fan of it. I do not like it. Allowing children to chemically castrate themselves, even though they can't get a tattoo because that's deemed too permanent for them, drives me up a wall. The fact that our nation's border doesn't have a wall drives me up a wall, mainly because we all have a fucking front door with a lock. Like, I just think that you should just have borders. Like, I'm getting a fence on my new house is being built. It's nothing wrong with that. That's driving me up a wall. This whole Kanye shit and like free speech issues driving me up a wall. Ukraine getting all this money driving me up a wall. This geriatric ass president driving me up a wall. All of it. It's just, this earth is ghetto. This planet's fucking ghetto right now. And I needed to get its shit together because what's happening is absolutely terrifying, and the lengths that people are going to defend it. Like Biden yesterday or 2 days ago with Dylan Mulvaney, who is she's on like day 276 of being a girl.
A girl, not a woman. A girl. Let's keep that in mind. No, a girl. She's very, 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 very adamant about being a girl, not a woman.
I really hope it's a psyop. I really hope he just comes out and be like, it was a joke all along. I doubt that's going to happen. But the fact that that man, Dylan, entered 2022 as a man and is now October and is famous, 8 million followers, met the president. Oh.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like, it's a fucking meme, dude. We're living in memes.
We're living in a meme. What's driving you crazy?
Working class people can't fucking make ends meet, right? Mm-hmm. Gas is through the roof, and we're depleting our oil reserves. We're spending more money in Ukraine than we spend in fucking counties that don't have water, right? Which are numerous in the United States, which is insane. insane.
Brown sludge coming out of fucking fountains.
Exactly.
Go
right.
on.
And all the thing, and it's like, okay. And then it's like the best we can do is a trans conversation, talk about gender affirming care, which is an unpopular issue. Listen, I think people that are over 18 can do whatever the fuck they want. And if they make
Whatever
a mistake,
you
like
want.
I got a cross tattoo when I was 18. Okay, I'm not a Christian anymore. I
You have
covered
a
that
cross
shit up.
tattoo?
I used to. Now it's covered up with
Okay.
like a bunch of lotus flowers and stuff. And it's like, hey, I covered it. I took responsibility, and I could have got it removed. Even this was something I told myself at the time. I was like, I could have got this removed. No big deal. My mom even offered to do it for Christmas one time, and then get another tattoo to cover it up because you just kind of dull it out. And I was like, no, I want the cover up to have to cover it up because a version of me made that decision, right? And that's the way I thought about it. I was like, I want to remember that tattoo was there for my own, like, hey, sometimes you think I was like, at the time I remember being 18 being like, you'll always be a Christian. Like, why would you ever change your mind about that?
Like,
you know, and it's like,
whatever.
how naive was I, right? So it's just a reminder of my own naivete, but it's like, if you're over 18, I think you should be able to do whatever you want. Like, and I know Jordan Peterson and those guys like have a hard time saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whatever. Kids, like, there's no such thing as somebody who understands human biology, who spent many hours of my life, right? Just like understanding this shit, understands the endocrine system pretty well, more than most, biology, like these things that like matter, development of cognitive development and how that's related to your endocrine system and your hormone levels, all these things, right?
Yeah.
They're all important. I am, as a person, generally a minimal interventionist when it comes to pharmaceutical drugs or surgery or any of that shit, right? When it comes to intervention within your body, I think you should look into the body first and what you're feeding it, how you're treating it, those kind of things. And then move to interventions second or third, right? And when you're talking about giving kids hormone treatments or even worse, surgeries to do things like postpone puberty, that is not a thing. There is a reason puberty happens when it does when it comes to developing bone density, neurological development. Like and it's bigger than just your body. Like puberty is way bigger than just your body, right? What the fuck? And can we not even have that conversation? And it's like 80% of the American public, people will say the left. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think those people do reside on the left, but it's like normal fucking people are like all of my friends are fucking liberals, right? Like we're all like fit, like we're all liberals that could beat the shit out of Charlie Kirk.
Are they all against the whole child thing?
1,000%.
Do they speak on it?
Yeah, we all are like, what the fuck? Well, some of them, it's like, it's not even real worth speaking up.
On. That's the problem.
But they will amongst themselves, but they're not going to put them, like, it's like if you own a business, you're not going to, it's like they're politically neutral on everything. Like they're not going to speak up. Like they're not making Roe versus Wade comments, even though they have they're.
Well, I just hope to friends that they say more.
Well, to friends, it's more like standing around in the gym going like, what the fuck, man? Like, what is this shit? Because we all know, like we were all fitness professionals at one time, which means you understand how hormones affect not just your body, but your mind. You know, it's crazy. And so you get the situation where someone's clearly is either going through a phase, which is fine. Like if a boy wants to wear girls' clothes, okay.
Go for it.
That's fine, dude. And that doesn't mean you, and the whole thing is like, what does it even, I know that Matt Walsh has this whole thing, like, what is a woman? Like there's a technical definition of a woman, but what does it mean? I don't know what it feels like to be a man. I don't know what it feels like to be a woman. Like at some point, you're just making assumptions.
I always say it just needs to go back to their name. If we just default to our first name, have everything be the sex, you're male or female based on if you have a penis or a vagina, and then everything else is your name. Yeah. Let's just be fine. Just label as that. Like, oh, I'm Amir. What is Amir? It comes with all this shit. And that's it. Like, here it is. This is what he does. This is who he likes. This is who he fuck, like all of that.
Yeah.
But like the fact that we're even having to have this conversation, I have a problem with. And it just frustrates me off the jump because how did we get here so fast? Is it because of social media?
Yeah.
Is it because of these TikTok stars? Is it because they see the fame that comes with being a marginalized person? Like Dylan, who just rose from out of nowhere and 8 million followers.
Yeah.
I can't comprehend it. Who's pushing and advocating for children to cut their body parts off.
I understand that. I love Buck Angel with this stuff, right? So my cousin's dad is trans, right? And I know that it was something he was like deeply ashamed of for quite a while, I think. And I think my aunt who was married to him, knew that. And they were like, it's something she was kind of into, right? So it was like, doesn't want surgery, still likes women, but likes dressing like a woman. And it was like to the point where it's like, it became more, and then so when it became more normalized, there was some benefits of that, like him being like, be able to be like, this is who I am. I like dressing like a woman. I feel like a woman. I feel feminine. And then like, harms no one, not pushing it on anybody, just doing their own fucking thing, which is me as like a pro freedom guy is like, yeah, dude, like do your thing, whatever, you know?
Right.
That's you. Like,
go
cool.
for it.
If you feel free and that's whatever even got you there, like you're 50 years old, man. Like you do whatever you want to do. I don't give a shit. But when it gets to like with the kid, it's just the kids. And it's the same thing. It's kids with the vaccine. It's the way that they try to normalize like shitty food. And then it's also the kids that get brought up indoctrinated into religion too early and they don't ever get a chance to like really question that reasonably. But the same people who hate the trans indoctrination love indoctrinating their kids into Christianity, which is odd to me because you're talking about it's like a belief-based system.
Now,
like
on that point, yes, it is still like by definition indoctrination, but I will say that one's way worse than the other. Whereas like you're getting a more better person. Like, yeah, you have the people who either become Christian and they stay or become Christian, like, I'm not with this shit and they leave. Or become Christian, like super hard and like having a hard time dealing with that. But the pushing the trans shit, that's all bad.
Well, I think, yeah, it was all bad. I will say the pushback on Christianity is that there's a lot of people that don't get brought up like myself who like struggle with it for years, maybe were even suicidal for a while, like
for sure.
With,
and dealing with like
the deep embedded shame of like probably well-meaning people, but just that ideology, right? And even to this point,
I have a friend who's in the closet who's 8, he's 19, I think.
Yeah,
and I don't think there'll be a day that
so hard
he comes out because of his family and because they're just so Christian and so like it's just he loves his family so much. He's like, no, I'm not gay. And I'm like, we've had conversations and you haven't said it. You haven't said it, but you have stated that you would never come out anyways because of your family. So let's be real.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a mom, a guy that works with my mom. It's a guy who went to high school with his brother. Right. And I'm like, yeah, he's gay. She's like, no, I don't think he's gay. I think he's asexual. And I'm like, I've been around this motherfucker for my whole life. He has never there's never been a second I've been around him after meeting him where I didn't think he was gay. The only difference between me and the rest of you motherfuckers is y'all actually care. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I just don't care.
Yeah, it's like he is.
No,
and she's like,
I don't think he is.
Yeah, but he works like a Christian organization. It's really funny how this all goes. But let's go from, and this is one thing that's funny, on the world stage, like Russia laughs at us now. Like Vladimir Putin brings that kind of shit up when he's giving these speeches, which this whole Ukraine deal, it's like the same people who are like trans rights, all this other shit, right? They have the trans flag, even though they're not trans, and a Ukraine flag at their window, not realizing that shit doesn't even fly in Ukraine. They don't even treat gay people very well in Ukraine.
No.
On top, also the most corrupt country in Europe. Let's add that on there, right? And now they're dictating how they're going to behave when their country doesn't even exist without us propping them up. It doesn't exist without us.
Doesn't even exist.
Russia and Ukraine are one and the same. They're married now.
A Ukraine float in a gay pride parade. And I'm like, you can't even get married over there, right? Like, what's up with this false ass advertisement and this false ass allegiance to shit that the media just tells you to praise and promote? Or it's like it all looks back to like our main conversation talking about Kanye, but all these celebrities who are like, I stand with the Jewish community. I stand with the Jewish community. But then they weren't like 10 months ago with the whole like Palestine issue. It's like, come like, I would rather people just not speak. There's
a Nazi problem in Ukraine. Like people don't want to accept that reality. They have a Nazi problem. Like it's a thing. It's not a joke. It's not a make believe. It's not a fantasy. It's an inconvenient truth that is there, right? And when we look at how we funded the Mujahideen in Afghanistan when they were fighting Russia, what did that turn into? Al Qaeda, ISIS, right? So we're fighting freedom fighters that have our weapons that are fighting us now with our weapons that we gave them to fight Russia with. So when you have extremist like factions within a corrupt government, and you give them a shit ton of weapon, it's likely that those weapons will end up somewhere that you don't want them to end up. But if you're the military industrial complex, that only assures that you now continue to have a job. And when your profit motive is what's driving your decision making, more makes money. You know, and it's like all like so much of this, and then people like it's so funny with the conservatives, it trips me out. Is like they love capitalism so much, as if capitalism doesn't get hijacked constantly by our food system, our healthcare system, our war machine. It's like, bro, you got to quit cucking to capitalism and have some valid critiques.
I was just talking to one of my good buddies about this. About that's like one of the downfalls of capitalism. Like, yeah, it's great, sure, whatever.
There's no downfalls of capitalism, bro. None.
But it's frustrating that it caps. Like capitalism caps our growth. Like I think about how much money is made from plastic when we could easily just use hemp, but that would cut so much money to where people don't even like really care to do it for the greater good. It's like that part gets frustrating. Or one that's bugged me is America is always like, oh, we're the cleanest nation. Oh, we don't really like put out that many fossil fuels or like, you know, that many pollution. China does the most. Well, who buys the most shit from China? Are we not aiding to that pollution?
Like Dan Crenshaw loves saying that. He loves saying that like it's actually these other countries, these like third world, like Indonesia or India, excuse me. And I'm like, that's because Vidal Sassoon sends them ketchup-sized packets of shampoo and convince them that's what they need. Right? Instead of running off a bar like they used to, and they don't have trash infrastructure. Now the Coca-Cola, Dasani water, you know, Pantene Pro V, whatever is all getting shipped over there because you've convinced them that they need to be part of this consumerism, and they don't have trash infrastructure to deal with that. Right? Because they go buy their stuff the same day. They go buy food for that day or that couple of days. They don't live like we live here. But you're projecting American consumerism onto a country that has not prepared for that, and all that shit ends up in the water. So it's like maybe it's not us doing the polluting, but it's our companies that are responsible for that pollution, or our consumption that's responsible for pollution in other countries.
Exactly. And that's one thing I'll always point out. That's the downfall of capitalism, is that it doesn't not promote the advancements of our human race. Because if it did, we'd be living in an entire, I mean, shit, who knows? Maybe we'd have free energy. But I feel like it's too late for that because it all goes back to money, fucking power, and this earth and this planet's just ghetto. And I'm sad about it because it's cute. I like the grass.
What's the thing with like nuclear energy? Let's use that for example. Nuclear energy is where we need to go. It's the direction we need to be going in, right? I think it's pretty well established at this point. But you have the oil and gas lobby, who makes a lot of money from natural gas, who supports wind and solar. Now, wind and solar are a part of this. I think wind and solar are, I know people complain about it. Michael Schellenberger has like, he's kind of into like a right-wing troll. Like I think he got eaten by the machine a little bit and kind of went crazy. He just is like all woke this and that. It's like that was when somebody says woke, my eyes roll out of my head and I quit listening.
Yeah, I can't.
I'm just done with it. But I think it's all part of it, effective part of it. But it's like the wind and solar will always have to be backed up by natural gas. But the natural gas lobby the gas and oil and gas lobby is so powerful that they will now back up wind and solar because that's better for them than nuclear is.
Nuclear. I forgot who I was listening to, but someone said it's going to be a like a false flag, so to say, regarding nuclear something in Ukraine, and they're going to hijack the word nuclear and not want people to vote or push for nuclear energy. Yes.
If Europe doesn't get natural gas from Russia, then they don't have a choice but to go nuclear or start burning wood. Like, what are they going to do? And that's just gonna get real this wintertime, dude. Like you're gonna get real over like, you know, we'll do anything for Ukraine when people are fucking broke, hungry. You know what I mean?
Hungry.
You're only like is it 3 missed meals from a revolution? Like that's where you're always at. It's like, yeah, dude, people aren't. That's crazy. I mean, it's like. It's gotten, I don't understand. I mean, this has been a thing since the Bush era, dude, that kind of changed these things, like this post-World War II, but then into the Bush era where it's like American interventionist nation building. It's like I actually defended Biden with the Afghanistan withdrawal because he's not a general, right? He's not the one actually making those decisions. And I think my conspiracy mind goes, okay, the people that profit from war are in bed in the revolving door with the people that run the military, right? The generals, right. They go from working in the government to working at Lockheed to working in the government to working at Raytheon to Boeing. So it doesn't benefit them to have a clean withdrawal. It actually benefits them to have a messy withdrawal. That way, next time we're in a conflict and we go, we need to withdraw from this, everybody on all the talking heads from the CIA and wherever on MSNBC, Fox News, wherever will be like, oh, but then it'll just be like the Afghanistan withdrawal. And then we can kick that can down the road and stay in it. So I was like, that's not Biden's thing, right? Like Biden's not in the military. He's not a general. He's not making that decision. It was always going to be a shit show. Also, that's how, when you lose a war, it's a shit show. I'm sorry to tell you this. We didn't fucking win that war, guys. And this is what losing a war looks like. Grow the fuck up and accept that reality. So I defended him there, but it's like we were out of war for 5.5 fucking minutes. And all of a sudden now we're spending 10 times the amount of money we were spending funding a proxy war in Ukraine that Ukraine cannot win. So we're literally risking nuclear war for the goddamn Donbass region, dude. Like, is a mushroom cloud in the United States worth the fucking Donbass? And how stupid and manipulated do you have to be to believe that that's fucking worth it? That even if the threat of nuclear war goes up 5%, which it has, it's not worth it. All of Ukraine is not worth it. How much does Ukraine have to do with your day-to-day fucking life in the United States? 0 fucking percent. 0%. And if you think that means that now Putin, who is struggling to even take Ukraine, by the way, is going to take over all of Europe like Hitler tried to do with a weakened military, you think that's going to happen? He can barely, if that was the case, he would have taken Ukraine in 3 days. He would have blitzkrieged their ass and it would have been over with. But that's not the case. So at the same time, he's a madman. But when he talks about using nukes, you shouldn't listen to him. And he has imperialist ambitions to take back all of the Soviet bloc. But at the same time, he can't take all of Ukraine effectively. And you're supposed to believe all of those things, which all contradict with one another at the same time. That makes no fucking sense. No sense at all. The narratives are fucking out of their, like, people have lost their minds.
They've completely gone ape shit on.
And then you had this thing, and I'll finish with this. You can let you jump on it. But then I watched, so I told you it took me about 2.5 hours to vote, to fill my ballot out. And there was one guy, I think his name Adland, I think is his name, running for Congress, which congressional seats, candidate quality doesn't matter that much, but it matters to me, right? Especially when it's somebody who's representing my district here. So I voted for Michael Bennett, so a Democrat for Senate. And there's a reason for that was he has this core program which protects public lands. And the guy who was running against works in construction, which means I know he's going to privatize public lands, which I'm hard no on, and turn that into housing because he's got homies in the construction business, right? He was also bitching a lot about the student loan relief. And I was like, yeah, he had some good stuff. It wasn't bad, but like, I know Michael Bennett can get on his knees and suck Joe Biden's cock, and I'll still vote for him if he's going to protect public lands. Like, that's how much it matters to me. Then you go down and I was like, all right, we got a congressional race here. And it was this woman, I forget her name. She was like a nothing burger, right? Just typical, like running as a Democrat in a purplish district. And you got this other guy, and he was kind of an election denier, which was like, the stuff he said wasn't crazy from what I saw. I may have been wrong. But he seemed to have been like, hey, like most of those people did, said that it was mostly, I'm really talking about the Hunter Biden laptop suppression, which there's a valid point to be made there.
That is there, yeah.
And he goes, I think, he said these words, he goes, I think at minimum, we need extreme oversight over the funding and support that goes into Ukraine. And I was like, I'm voting for that guy. I'm voting for that guy. And that's like such a vanilla thing to say, like, oh, I just need oversight. And then you had the progressive caucus, like Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal, AOC, write this letter to the president being like, the most vanilla letter ever, be like, hey, Joe, you've done a great job. We love what you've done with Ukraine. We really appreciate all the support you're getting in fighting back against the mean guy, Putin. We just think maybe we should pair up our support for them financially and with weapons. We should also pair that with diplomacy. And then the neoliberal consensus fucking lost their mind. And within 24 hours, these pussies took back the letter. They retracted the letter.
They retracted it.
Within 24 hours. And they said nothing controversial. What if they would have released it to the United States, 95% of people would be like, yeah, that makes total sense. But the blue checks on Twitter drugged them, called them Putin apologists, said they were aligning with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert. And it's like, yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert are dumber than hell.
It's like, we need to get together somehow. We need to reach a middle ground somehow,
it's like,
some way.
God forbid. They were being shamed for being
take our wins.
Take the win.
Right. It kind of like that story that Tulsi Gabbard talked about, how she was in Congress or whatever, and she made cookies for everybody, and even the Republicans. And she gave the cookies to the Republicans, some Hawaiian treat. And they were like, yeah, no one over there comes over here like that. Or like, this is not normal. And she's just like,
It's like a
isn't
school
our whole
dance when everybody's
goal
like
here,
awkward.
right? Isn't our whole goal here is to like come together and merge, even though we're different? Let's just find the middle grounds. But no, they don't want to do that.
And the way it's gotten that way, it seems like it's a long game as to how it got here. You know what I mean? It's not like it's just happened. It feels like it just happened, but if you go back and look at, you know, the McCarthy era, JFK, the way that socialism got demonized, now you can just call somebody woke or social. Like woke is a new socialism, right? Instead of like Vox, it doesn't mean anything anymore because it just gets overused by boomers. But yeah, it's a trip. And when we look at that whole thing, it's like, what in the actual fuck is going on? And then it's very likely that we're going to have Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump.
I don't think so. You think so?
It's possible. Is it likely? I don't know. I'm on the fence.
I don't know. Cause you look at those black pages, you look at them black pages, they do not like Kamala.
No, I mean, they don't at all. No one does. Why would you? But how is she the fucking vice president?
I see Pete coming out of nowhere. Be like, I'm going for it again.
But even Pete, Beto, they're all fake Obama. They're just Obama, like a Bush League ass Obama trying to be like
That's
Obama.
fair.
I used to like Beto O'Rourke, and that guy fucking lost his mind. I liked him whenever he was running against Ted. But I hate Ted Cruz.
Crazy.
He lost his damn mind. It's wild. We live in a crazy world. So we shit on the left. I knew we were going to do that. You spend a ton of time with Republicans, conservative commentators. You go to Daily Wire events. You and Candace are friends, which I like that. It's fun, and you get a finger on the pulse for that stuff whenever I reach out to you.
Yes.
What frustrates you about that side of the world? We don't see that. The low hanging fruit, the pinata to punch is the left. It's easy, right? It's also people love it. People want to like share that shit. They like it. They comment. Whenever you have valid critiques of, or whenever I have valid critiques of the conservatives, I get a lot more pushback, right? And I don't go at them hard, but sometimes, you know, their craziness, especially when it comes to like, let's like rethink gay marriage. I'm like, let's not do that.
Yeah, like let's not do that. Well, let's rethink. I'm down for the term, but not for the action. I'd rather the government not be in marriage at all, but like I also don't want you to say that marriage can exist and it's illegal for two men to be together, because like F that, like that's just not gonna happen. It's not gonna fly with me. Things that frustrate me with like the right that I see, especially lately, would be the gay issue. That, you know, you have gays against the groomers. You have this coalition of gay people on the right who are being vocal against the same thing that majority of the right is vocal against, but they don't get the certain attention, or how they're very like tribalistic almost, in that if you don't act like a conservative, then you're not one. So right now I just say like I'm center right. I just say that that's just where I land. Because like, oh, like if you're conservative, then like you can't be gay. And it's like, okay, well, would you want me to vote for Biden then? Or do you want an extra vote for Trump? Like, what do you want here? That frustrates me. And then you have a lot of people who left the left, or that's like the left left them. And you have this growing mound of people who are politically homeless. And it's like they almost can't even get an invite from the right, because the right gets too focused on, oh, like that's just degeneracy. Like you can't, like people shit on Linda all the time. Wake up from Linda. They shit on her sometimes because she works out in like a bikini top and like her biker shorts. And you're like, oh, like you have to cover up and be modest. Things like that frustrate me. Or like Daily Wire, love them. Like they're cool to hang out with. They throw great events and whatnot. But it's like, could I ever have a show there? Or no, because I'm gay. Things like that.
Yeah, it's the Daily Wire trips me out a lot, and I think about that a lot because I would love for politically homeless to be at the Daily Wire, right? And I think you having a show, me having a show there, like that would be awesome. I think it would be great for them. It'd be great to diversify their brand. I think we fit in line with like free thinkers and like, but it's like,
oh, for sure,
it's so ideologically driven that that would never work.
Exactly, and that's where it kind of like that's the one thing that kind of bugs me about the right, is that the whole just like cult like behavior. And that, and then the whole, how do I say this? People not practicing what they preach.
Elaborate.
Like at these like big conservative events that I would used to go to, because I don't really go to them anymore. I mean, we're all human. I mean, they get lit. We get turned. Like you see the drugs, you see the alcohol, you see people partying, and it's like, aren't you just fighting against that? Or like you see like, oh, like I'm against gay people, but like I just heard that you just suck homie dick. Like what's really going on here? Like, and I always will say that a trans man on the left has bigger balls. No, a trans woman on the left has bigger balls than some conservative men. At least they're vocal in what they want. Conservative men, they just trip me out. A lot of them do. Because they're too stuck on, I have to be this man. And it's like, bro, you ever heard of toxic masculinity? That shit's real. That shit's like you just bottling this up and not saying anything and only venting to your gay friend, or just bottling up and not saying anything is a problem. So yeah, those are some things that bother me on the right. Just like the whole like, oh, we're in this together. This whole like hive-like mind mentality, certain gay issues, hypocrisy. Those are some things.
When the more restrictive you claim to be in the way you look at something, the more you open yourself up to the hypocrisy, right? Like there's things I'm definitely hypocritical about that I don't see, because we aren't who we think we are, right? Like the way the world sees us, the way we see ourselves is often different. But it's really hard to find me in that, right? Because it's like, I'm making a decision based on principles. Like it's like, and I think with conservatives, like there's so many try-hard conservatives. And when you talk about that with these men, like I actually think Charlie Kirk's probably gay. I look at him, you know what I mean? And I'm like, and how much he cares about these certain things. Like you can't care that much unless there's some reason to care that much.
I think you just care because of money. And when you're in charge of an organization and with all this money, you have to care and be the forefront of that for the donors.
But it's like, is this guy really embodying masculinity? It's like these guys that talk about masculinity all the time, or sometimes I'm like, dude, I would slap you in your face and I'm a liberal.
I don't think a lot of them know what masculinity really is.
Yeah, they have an idea of it. It's like they watch a John Wayne movie and they think that's masculinity. And I'm like, it's way more than that. Like being able to actually speak up for what you actually want is a masculine trait. You know what I mean? And also like femininity is actually more powerful than masculinity. And if you look at the scale of the way things work, like there's something more, like the way that David Data says it, it's really interesting, is masculinity is the ship, right? Like it's goal oriented. Boom, boom. I want to go here. I'm doing this. It's very focused in that way. And this doesn't have to do with like gender as much, but there are trends, obviously. And he said, masculinity is a ship. Femininity is the ocean. It's like, you get to go where it allows you to go, and you have to work with it to get the maximum benefit out of reaching your goals. That's like a healthy relationship, right? And it's like, it doesn't matter. It could be 2 men, 2 women, whatever. It has nothing to do with that. I know a guy who was, a CrossFit Games athlete who was the feminine role in his relationship, right? Like, so it's like the big, strong dude, but his wife was the masculine.
The big old teddy bear.
Yeah. And he was just like, and he was very emotional, very successful, but very emotional. And his wife was like assertive, goal-oriented, like focused, kept him reined in. And it was like, so it's not about gender necessarily, but there is something to be said about that. But you have to look at the nuances of that. And that's one thing with I had the folks from Gays Against Groomers reach out to me. And I know there's the one white dude, he really pissed me off. I forget his name, but we were getting into it because I have a non-traditional relationship with my wife, and we sometimes hook up with other women. Right. We both like that. Something we do together. It's fine. And I brought that up, and he responded something about it because it was on the podcast or something like that I had shared. And this is a gay man, right? Who I'm like, you do whatever you want to. I'm like the least judgmental with that kind of shit. Like I give zero fucks. In fact, me and a buddy of mine, when I owned the gym, we're out having beers, watching football with a gay couple that goes to my gym, went to my gym, and they were giving us tips on anal. Because I was like, these people know better than we do, right? Like,
that's fair, we do.
I was like, we learned a lot that day. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like, oh, this is weird. It was like, what can we learn?
Right. This is
and
cool.
So like, I don't give a fuck. And this guy told me, he said that he would rather have an abusive father like he had than have parents who have threesomes sometimes. And I was like, go fuck yourself, bro. I was like, you judgmental fuckhead. Like,
Yeah,
don't
that's
come and tell
wild.
me how I should be doing my relationship right now. I think his handle was like Polita something or whatever. I don't remember, but it was
rather have an abusive family than someone who just like is very just sexually open.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, we're probably gonna be going to hotels and stuff, and like have somebody watching the kids if we want to get out. But it's like, it's nice to, it keeps things fired up. We enjoy it. We have a good time. Like whatever. And it was weird, and I was like, wow, this is really strange. That like, even within something that like, where I'm really super open to you, my like little deviation from normalcy is like a fucking problem for you, and it really it like bothered me. It like got to me. And even when they reached out to me, wanted to do a podcast, like wanted me to have on the podcast. And I was like, listen, man, I don't appreciate calling people groomers. Like, I don't like I don't like overusing the word racist, anti-Semitic, groomer. Like, I feel like it's inappropriate. It's just like, you're not helping, because that can so easily be turned on just a gay school teacher who isn't pushing an agenda, who's just a teacher that happens to be gay. Now all of a sudden they got to be scared.
Even if it's against, like the name is against it though. It was like blacks against racism.
The way that they're going about it, the overuse of that word, like what they're calling anybody, like if you can, then it depends on what black against racism was doing, right? If it's like,
I think the main thing with gays against groomer is why it's maybe called gays against groomers is because groomer was quickly being hijacked to just mean anyone gay.
That's what I'm saying. And that's what I was scared of. And I didn't want to platform that.
And now I think with the help of gays against groomers, it's separating the two.
Okay.
Because it's showing that there's people that are not gay that are against that. Whereas before, all I was saying was, oh, this person's a groomer because they had a fucking rainbow flag in the classroom. And it's like, bro, chill. It's the colors.
So are they coming out when somebody says that, like, oh, hey, they have like somebody, and some teachers have like rainbow curtains in their classroom. I'm like, dude, if it's a kindergarten class, like rainbow curtains,
they need to know that. They need to know the colors.
Well, but it's like rainbows are appropriate in kindergarten classes. Like Gallagher had rainbow overalls. Like it's not, it's like it's like rainbows and butterflies and unicorns and okay. Like it's a kid's it's like just because it's a rainbow doesn't mean they're gonna be talking about sucking dicks. You know what I'm saying? Like those two things aren't the same. And I don't see gays against groomers like calling that shit out, like the overuse, right? Because I feel like if you're gonna use that term, like you gotta say, you gotta be able to call both sides. Like here's overreach and here's a real problem. Because a lot of stuff they're posting, I feel like is a real problem. But whenever somebody's like, oh, my kindergarten teacher is gay, it's like, who gives a fuck? No one cares. Like this is actually homophobic.
Kind of calling out both sides, like saying like, all right, here's the real issue with this and why it's not an issue. Or here's like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that perspective.
Yeah. So it's just, for me, I felt like it was being weaponized against just innocent people who are just trying to do their fucking job. And then especially when you get to these like, even the Florida bill, they get like what they called the Don't Say Gay bill. I read through it and I was like, the problem with this bill isn't, I mean, the politicization of it made it really noisy, but it's just it's not descriptive enough.
Yeah, it's pretty vague. It's very vague.
And then you're gonna have people who are like, hang on, I thought that my kids were gonna have gay teachers. Like, there are gonna be some people that are like that. Then administrators are gonna be like, God fucking damn it, it's another one of those things. It just means
that they can't really talk about it.
Yeah,
but I think my problem with that gay bill was, okay, what do you do with a pregnant teacher? Because clearly a pregnant teacher means that she was fucking a man. So maybe. Is she not putting her sexuality on display? Oh no, yeah. I'm just always like looking farther down. I'm like, what is this opening?
It gets tricky, man. It does. But it's, again, like it's all scoring points now. It's just point scoring. And it's
who can dunk on who.
Who can dunk on who. It's all it is. That's politics now.
Who can say what? It's who can be the most offended. It's just I'm over it. I'm over it all. I talk my shit online. I work out. I take care of my fitness. I do some random giveaways. And I'll give my kind of commentary on social and political events. Other than that, I'm minding my business because this world's too fucking opinionated and too fucking crazy for me.
Well, tell people what this giveaway is. I like these giveaways. I like watching this. It makes me happy.
I love it. So periodically throughout the year, I'll just randomly be like, hey, everybody, go ahead and Venmo me 50 cents. We're going to go tip a waiter or something. And then people Venmo 50 cents. The 50 cents adds up from all the followers. And we tip like $500, $300, whatever it may be, to strangers. One time I was like, hey, I'm going to go to Target and let's fund someone's Christmas. Everyone donated. We found this family who it was just a crazy story. Long story short, she so does a grandma and a 3-year-old boy, super cute. And the grandma actually just got full custody of the boy and the 2 other siblings because the parents were addicted to drugs and they were looking at what to get for Christmas. So I said, hey, I'm going to walk around with you and him, and I want him to pick out stuff. Then I'll come back, buy the stuff, and then put it in your trunk. And so we walked around with the little boy. He's like, who are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm grandma's friend. And he's like, I want this and I want this. And we ended up spending like $1,500 and got like
no shit.
Big Sister switches. We got them games. He got Lego sets. And then obviously his dad's not around. And this one touched me. I got him a little the little baseball thing, but it's on a wire.
Oh yeah.
So you can hit it and then get it yourself. So you can play by yourself. Because obviously no one's around to help him play. I'm like, oh, little buddy. But we got him that. It was just super cool. So giveaways like that. That's what I love to do. Just like to just occasionally just like raise money online and just give it out because there's too much shit going on. It's just ghetto. So I just need a little happiness. I need a little happiness.
The world is ghetto. That's the name of this podcast, dude.
That is. The world is fucking ghetto.
Well, man, before we get out of here, what can we do to make it better? What can we do to make the world less ghetto? What needs to happen? And just a couple things.
Taking care of home. Like some basic Jordan Peterson shit, like making your bed, but like literally taking care of your mental and physical health. The more you spend time prioritizing drinking water, working out, reading books, paying attention to the smallest details. How are you talking to yourself every day? How are you moving throughout your day? Is your life designed for you to be, like stress-free? Like my room, I'm very minimalist. Like my room's blank. I like it like that. It eases my mind. Just taking care of home because like, damn, like too many people are, like I always say, if your house was on fire, but you also have a leaky faucet, are you calling a plumber or are you calling the fire department? And too many people are calling a plumber. It's like, call the fire department, get this shit fixed in your life and actually pay attention to what's going on in your immediate family, your immediate friend group, and your immediate neighborhood. Instead of worrying about what's happening 6,000 fucking miles away, or instead of worrying about what a black billionaire is doing and talking about, instead of being offended for a community that you know nothing about, instead of defending a country that you can't point on a fucking map, what can you do for yourself to make sure that change is happening for your world around you? That's what I want you to focus on. And then we can move on. Amir
Odom. That's it. Where can everybody find you, brother?
Connor.
Love that, dude.
Everyone can find me at amirodom.com. Easiest place to find me and my website. Also, Amir X Odom on Instagram, AmirXodom. You can find me there. And yeah.
And we'll link all that stuff in the show notes. We'll share it everywhere. Videos will be coming your way. Thanks for doing this, dude. Next time the world's on fire, we'll jump on and
yes, Earth's Ghetto Part 2. There'll be a series. It's kind of like Joe Rogan and I forgot who, but they always like dress up in costumes for their shows.
Duncan Trussell.
Yes,
Duncan Trussell.
We'll have a version of that. We'll have Earth's Ghetto Part 2.
I'm gonna come to Nashville for next time. I'm gonna drive the truck all the way down there and just like road trip it.
Do it. I think we just started a new series, Earth's Ghetto.
There we go.
And we're just gonna rant. I love it, Connor. Thank you so much for everything, brother. It's a pleasure being here.
Of course, you too, man.